My brothers and sisters, the Lord is with you.
And also with you.
And this is a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
While dismissing the crowds, Jesus insisted that the disciples get into the boat and precede him to the other side. Having sent them away, Jesus went up on the mountain by himself to pray, remaining there alone as evening drew on. Meanwhile, the boat, already several hundreds out from shore, was being tossed about in the waves raised by strong headwinds. At about 3 a.m, Jesus came walking toward them on the lake. When the disciples saw Jesus walking on the water, they were terrified. "It is a ghost," they said. And in their fear, they began to cry out. And Jesus hastened to reassure them, "Get hold of yourselves. It is I. Don't be afraid." Peter spoke up and said, "If it is really you, tell me to come to you across the water." "Come," Jesus said. So Peter got out of the boat and began to walk on the water and go toward Jesus. But when he saw how strong the wind was, he became frightened. He began to sink and cried out, "Save me." Jesus at once stretched out his hand and caught Peter. "Little faith," Jesus called him, "why did you doubt?" Once they had climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Those who were in the boat showed great reverence, declaring to Jesus, "You are indeed the firstborn of God." And this is the good news of our salvation.
Praise the Lord Jesus Christ.
Please be seated.
Once again, good morning.
Good morning, Father.
As I said, we're celebrating the day of St. Clare, which is tomorrow, the 11th. Just a few words about this woman. And I guess you could say she was very extraordinary. A woman who was extraordinary, who did a lot of ordinary things. She was probably born far ahead of her time. When she lived, she was about 8 or 9 years younger than Francis. The commonality they had, even before she was drawn to his way of life, was that Clare came also from a very wealthy family, probably even wealthier than Francis's family. And you know that expression about being born with a silver spoon in your mouth? She was probably born with a gold spoon in her mouth. And she was very much taken by this young man who gave up his wealth and looked like he should have lived in a garbage heap. And she was attracted to what he was saying. She was attracted to what he was all about. She probably never realized what she was getting herself into when you come right down to it. But what she wanted to do exactly what Francis was doing. Going out among the people, teaching as best as she could. But there was a problem. The problem was that she was a woman. And in her day, if anyone wanted to lead a life of to lead a religious life, a woman had to go into a cloister, into a monastery. They were not allowed to go out into the world and do what the good sisters, as we say today. But she was an example. She went to Francis, on Palm Sunday, I think it was in 1216 or somewhere, no. Yeah, probably. And she submitted to having her hair cut, having the veil put on her. But Francis didn't know what to do with it. There was no room for women to do anything. So he sent it to the Benedictine nuns. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, we owe them, the Benedictines, a tremendous debt as Franciscans. Of course, they gave Francis the chapel that we spoke about a few weeks ago, the Portiuncula, and they gave Claire a place to live. An extraordinary woman. There's a legend that goes that when the friars, or the confessors for the nuns, and she did get a following very quickly. Her sister joined, and then after her father died, her mother also joined her in the convent. The legend goes that the Benedictines were called to be their confessors. The Pope or the Bishop, I think it was, pulled the friars from being their confessors and sent the Benedictine monks. And one of the things that the poor Clares have to do is they have to support themselves. So around the monastery, there was a beautiful garden, vegetables as well as flowers. And it seems that when the Benedictines went to be their confessors, the garden didn't produce. The garden withered. So what happened? The bishop sent the friars back, and the garden began to grow again. Legend? Fact? Could be. Faith can move mountains. So that's Mother Clare. By the way, there is a monastery of Poor Clare nuns, as they're called, up in Delray Beach. That's where we get our altar bread from. And we're family. So keep them in your prayers. So we get into today. And I ask you to do something if you think of it. Sometime today, on the back of the bulletin are the readings listed. First reading, second reading of the gospel. Always there, in case you don't realize it. So I know many of you go home right away and you're going to read those readings over again. Would be nice. But I want you today to reread the second reading and to really understand where we get our heritage from. And if you read that and you think about, I just thought of this morning as I was sitting there listening to Trini read. The struggles, the hatred that's passed on to our Jewish brothers and sisters. It's incredible. All you got to do is think about the Second World War and what happened to our Jewish brothers and sisters. Now, they weren't the only ones of the Holocaust, obviously. But man, you know, they were really abused. And as from an Italian background, one of the things that was always said about the Jews, they were called Mazzu Christi, the ones who killed Christ. The Roman government killed Christ. Completely off the track, I'm sorry. Really. And it's very disturbing. I remember, and Father Vinny will back this up, at one point in the Holy Week liturgy, the term for the Jews was the perfidious Jews. Right, Father? And they tried to reinstall those words a couple of years ago in the Roman Church. Guess that's why we're here. Listen to the gospel today. When we were all much younger, well, most of us anyway, what did we end the sign of the cross with? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Ghost, yes.
Holy Ghost. Wow. Okay. A ghost is something that causes fear. A ghost is something that people laugh at. A ghost is something that people put on sheets to scare people. Or Casper, the friendly ghost. And the apostles say it is a ghost. And what did Jesus answer them? 3 words. It is I. It is I. Another way of saying 2 words. I am. And we've spoken about I am before, right? I am refers to God. When Moses was on the mountain, whatever that mountain was, whether it was high or low or plain, whatever, but when Moses comes down and has the law, and he says to God, well, who am I supposed to say sent me? The voice said, I am. And that's what Jesus declares to the apostles. Don't be afraid, because I am. I am with you. And then Peter shows you and me. He personifies us. Right? Peter, the one who had the big mouth, I'm going to come to you. And then the story goes, he didn't know where the stones were that Jesus was walking. You didn't get that. Anyway. That's us. We want to have faith, we want to believe, and yet when we go out, all of a sudden we get a little nervous. That's like, I remember a long time ago, the first time I was out in public, other than the church in Manhattan, a long time ago in Brooklyn. And it was kind of scary. But then we look at people who come from other countries, and they go out in their native garb, and it doesn't say we can't offend them. And yet people like to, at times, offend us. It's not a costume. It's who we are. So be not afraid, my brothers and sisters. God is definitely with us. Do we doubt? Maybe. But our faith makes us whole. Pray for me as I pray for you. May God bless us and keep us. May God's face shine upon us and give us peace now and always. Amen. Amen.